Hi, I'm Richard Vague with the Tycos Group. Today, all the talk is about the debt ceiling. Uh, our view is that it's primarily a negotiating tactic rather than something more substantial. The federal debt ratio right now, federal debt to GDP, is 120%. That's as compared to 123% last year, so slightly better, and far better than the 134% that we saw in April of 2020, when, of course, GDP has collapsed and all ratios were exaggerated. So, it's high, but the growth has been benign over the last year or so. Uh, I think the important thing to note, which everybody overlooks in these debates, is government spending creates wealth. So if the government spends $1 trillion, that's money does not disappear. That's money that goes into the pocketbooks and bank accounts of households. So $1 trillion spent by the government is $1 trillion in increased wealth at households. And in fact, right now, as of the September quarter of last year, the net worth of households, all their stocks and real estate and bank accounts, minus all the debt they have outstanding, the net worth of households was $143 trillion. So that puts that government debt number in perspective. And about 30 trillion of that 143 trillion is wealth gained by households from government spending. So it's not this profligacy in terms of it going out of the system. It stays in the system as wealth to households. Now, let's also comment a little bit about debt going forward. U.S. GDP increases, let's call it about $1.5 trillion a year. And that, of course, will grow, we hope. As long as net government debt doesn't increase by more than that, the ratio actually improves. So I feel like the ratio is not going to be problematic for the next couple of years. And in fact, if government were to spend less, if they were only to incur about $500 billion in debt instead of $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion, we'd actually have an adverse consequence to GDP. We would have GDP slow down or decline dollar for dollar by the amount the government didn't spend, because growth is dependent on public and private spending. We all know the formula: consumption plus investment plus government spending equals GDP. So it's an increase in those categories. That's the increase in GDP. If government spending, which is a function of government debt, didn't increase, private sector debt and spending would have to increase commensurately to make up for the difference. So, that's another thing to keep in mind as we go through all of this. No serious investor believes that there's real long-term economic consequence from a debt ceiling interruption. People talk about that it might cause inflation, or it might cause a recession, or it might cause our interest rates to go up, or our credit rating to be damaged. Well, any such impact would be either non-existent or very, very short-lived. Remember the last time this happened, which was in late 2018. It only lasted for 35 days. There was no durable consequence of it in terms of any of those factors. What did happen is the little guy got hurt for a while. The stories were of government employees not getting their paychecks for that 35-day period, and many of them appearing in bread lines, which is, of course, a humiliating and heartbreaking consequence of this that, in my view, we should avoid, but who knows what the politicians will end up doing. So, we're going to have short-term difficulty at the level of the little guy. There aren't going to be big consequences to this. That's our view of the debt ceiling debate.